and well-being. Check us out after the show and find your fit with us at healingedu.org. We do this program to help us make sense of this crazy and beautiful world, more beautiful after the defeat of the casino, so that we can choose the more beautiful side. Too often we focus on the crazy things in our life, like elections, forgetting that the flip side is where we can find and create opportunity, wisdom, and healing. In finding our fit, we focus on learning, growth, and how to become wiser and more resilient by adopting a healthier relationship with ourselves and everybody and everything. It's important to embrace both the yin and the yang, both the challenging and rewarding parts of life, so that we can create balance and conditions for healing. It's a practice that we have to choose every single day. Today, we're continuing our Finding Our Fit series called Path to True Self, What's Missing? In this series, I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Jah Khyle Howard, to discuss the path that we've been traveling on, which has been similar in the sense that we have been seeking for decades to fill in what has felt to be missing in our lives. We're taking one subject at a time on second and fourth Thursdays. We'll skip the fourth Thursday for Thanksgiving to explore this topic in more detail. Jay and I both hope that it'll help all of you to consider what's missing in your life as well, and more importantly, to fill that gap so that we can all feel more whole. This topic is also discussed on my blog on Psychology Today called Heart of Healing, and hopefully Ron will put that in the chat for you so you could read along with this topic in addition to tuning in with us. And soon we hope to be offering a do-it-yourself community class so that you can have these conversations with your loved ones or coworkers. So stand by for that as well. So that's the plan. 3 ways for you to engage, to figure out what's missing in your life, and better yet, how to fill those gaps so that we can all be our truest and best selves. In the last 2-ish episodes of this series, we discussed the cover-up, why we don't notice what's missing or address it. And last time we talked about what was missing at work and how we tend to sabotage our path to our true self. If you missed those episodes or the introductory show on what's missing in our lives, you can find them on our YouTube channel, WRWK. Today, we are going to focus on an aspect of our relationship with ourselves, having to do with self-care. This is a really rich and deep topic. I'm sure Jay and I will be touching on this several times going forward. But today we're going to focus on the aspect regarding self-care, what we were not giving ourselves or understanding about ourselves and why. And more importantly, as I mentioned, what's the remedy and the gift for this self-exploration? How do we fill that need? So just want to pause for a moment to say hi to Jah Khyle Howard,
Hey there.
of this series. Hey, Jay, good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
I guess we never mentioned that Jay is not a Richmonder. He's actually dialing in from San Diego. But
Yes,
but the wonders of modern technology, it almost feels like you're right next door.
that's right.
Okay, so good to see you, Jay. And so we're talking about what's missing in our relationship with ourselves in terms of our self-care. So this has been a topic for me that has been going on like a gaping wound without me being able to name it for so long. But before I share anything about my story, I'd love to hear how you would talk about this topic, Jay.
So, as you were speaking, it crossed my mind that the vain and the insecure suffer from the same issue. They take themselves too seriously. One, what we would call the positive side, and the other one's on the negative side. And so I didn't have a hero story. I had a horror story, and I was the monster in my story. And so in my mind, there was nothing good about me. I didn't look right. I didn't fit in. And these were all the stories I was telling myself. No one cared. No one supported me. All these other things, like these were stories that was rolling around in my head that I just wasn't okay. And I guess I was functionally depressed, where I always thought that depression was something where you just kind of stayed in bed under the covers, didn't deal with people. But I was out and about in the world thinking that I was being active, and I was actually depressed when I understood what depression was. And so, not understanding that and having this chatter in my head about just how screwed up I was, and no one confirmed that. It's just that the way I saw the world and I saw me in it just didn't fit. And so I thought that I needed to change as opposed to just looking at myself and seeing me for who I was. And so when you're in that frame of mind, you're always seeking validation from other people to tell you that you're fine. And when you don't get it, you don't feel supported, you don't feel loved. And it's not that that's going on with anybody else. They're doing their own thing. They're going through their own stuff too. And so I just didn't see me in the best light.
Wow, I like how you put that. What was missing was your own hero story, where you're the hero, and instead you're the monster.
Yeah, in my horror story.
And I'm curious because sometimes people just assign others to be the monster. Do you think that's really the same dynamic? They just have blamed it on somebody else, or do you think that dynamic is?
See, I think that's the vain. That's what I was saying. I think the vain and the insecure have the same problem.
Oh, okay.
Right? They blame other people. We blame ourselves. But it's the same. The end result is the same. Neither of us feel like we're right, even though the vain tries to pump themselves up and be a little pompous. They only do that because they know that something's not right.
And in both cases, they are not being their own hero.
Correct.
Either way, we're being a victim.
Yes.
Whether we're flawed and unlovable or unworthy or undeserving, or for some, it's putting that outwards on other people, that you're making me feel.
Right.
Yeah.
As a vain person, you demand other people to support your story, right? To convince you that you're really as vain or as beautiful, as wonderful as you think you are. And so you still rely on something outside of yourself to feed you, and you in turn become the monster in your story too.
Yeah, that's interesting. You always say the most provocative things, Jay, and some of them are interesting and good. I'm kidding.
We all sound genius in here until it comes out of my mouth.
So, I've said this on previous shows, but it always interests me that we've been on such similar paths, so we have very different backgrounds. I mean, I guess you could just look at us and like that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But I did have a similar dynamic. Like I was my own monster, but some of the language came from others, and so even though I was kind of rebellious and I was like, I don't buy any of that, but actually I did. On some level, I did buy it and I believed it. And the external talk, which was fairly abusive, I just absorbed it and just continued the self-hate,
Yes.
I just continued the narrative. I believed it on some point. And then I had this thing of, I used to think that, well, if it's going on in my head, then it must be true. So if I think I'm stupid and ugly and not worthy, well, that must be true because my brain is so smart.
Right. And no one tells you any different because they don't know that's what you think.
Yeah. Or even if they did tell you that, like, I'd be like, oh, you don't know. Something like that. But it's interesting because I think I toggled back and forth between that really, I'm a terrible person, I'm not good enough mentality to the other end. Like I think I went back and forth between that vanity and insecurity. Like, well, I'm smart. I know what's happening here, and you don't. So
Right.
like this arrogance, and I just think like I guess maybe some of us just go back and forth to either persona, or we tend to stay in one more than the other, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had these narratives in our head.
Mm-hmm.
Mine came from my environment, is learned behavior, I think. And yours just came, like, you just came to your own conclusions in your infinite wisdom as a 5, 6, 10-year-old, whatever, right?
Well, it's an interesting story. So in my family, I was the lightest. I had the lightest skin, and before Mother Nature decided to recall my hair, I had my hair was somewhat straight, and so my siblings used to call me ugly white boy because they were darker, and so I didn't even know that I was black until I was about 6. And so I was walking around with this heavy weight on my shoulder that I didn't even fit in with my family because I wasn't like them. I was this ugly white boy. And that thing just kind of stuck, like I said, at 5. And I didn't know what white and black was, but I just knew, well, actually, this was back in the 70s, so it was colored. And so my mom informed me when I went to school, and she was asking me how my day went. And I said, me and this colored boy were arguing over something. And she goes, colored? What are you talking about? I said, yeah, like you. And she goes, well, what color do you think you are? I said, I'm white. Well, who told you that? And of course, I'm like, they did. So I never rid myself of that. Like when I looked in the mirror, I saw ugly white boy. And then, my eye drifted and, and so there was all these visual things that I saw in my mind that confirmed what my siblings said.
Okay, so you did pick it up from your environment to some degree, but
Sure.
you filled in the details in a very creative way.
Yeah, they gave me the outline and I filled in the details. Yeah.
Yeah, so here we are going along in our delusions of either grandeur or victim or unworthiness.
Yep.
And so what effect does that have on your life and path, Jay?
So obviously, every relationship that I was in, in the beginning, in the honeymoon stage, I could show up as something else. But then there came a point in time when I settled into the relationship and I realized, oh, they're going to figure out that I'm this ugly white boy. And then, of course, the relationship would take a downturn. And I'm sure most people were bewildered by my actions, but it was an internal thing. And it was nothing that anyone did except they were feeding off of my own insecurities. And it is an energy and people feel it. And I would disconnect because, I would go back into my turtle shell where I felt safe.
And so it came as a barrier to forming lasting, intimate relationships. I mean, did that also affect you at work and how you chose your path?
So at work gave me the opportunity to wear a costume and a mask. And so what I had adopted was this strong-handed, uncaring boss figure. And I also, I laughed, I tried to lighten the load some, but I carried that I'm the boss, things have to go my way. That was my persona. And, interesting enough, I think I've taken emotional intelligence classes. I was sent to emotional intelligence classes probably like 5 or 6 times.
That worked well.
Yeah. So, I'm a pretty good student of that class.
And so what does that have to do with like being your monster, being heavy-handed, uncaring? Is that because, well, I believe I'm a monster, so I'm going to act like a monster?
Well, the insecurity of being a monster wanted me to present myself as something different than that.
Mm.
And so I was trying to be what I thought a boss was.
Mm.
And it had nothing to do with humanity. It was just a character that I figured out how I could play. I mean, it fit my size. And I could just, be that and have people kind of wondering, what is he going to do? That kind of thing. And so what eventually happened, it kept people at a distance, which was my goal. Don't look too closely, at me, because you'll see all of my flaws. But, and so it gave me the ability to keep people at a distance. And I was always able to refocus conversations. I was always able to lighten the mood if I felt the need, or figure out how to distract people when they were starting to peer in.
Mm-hmm. So this is WRWK 93.9 FM. I'm Susanna Wupong Calvert, here with Jah Khyle Howard, co-host. We're discussing Path to True Self, what's missing in self-care. And we'd love to hear from you listeners. If you want to pop something in the chat on Facebook, or give us a ring at 804-464-1089. We'd love to hear about your path to self-care, and what was missing in that, and how you filled in the gap.
Yeah. Like, I remember my last position when I was leaving, and they threw me a going away party, and the CEO came down and she was talking. And I distinctly remember her saying to me, I know you don't like hugs, but I'm going to give you one anyway. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I absolutely love hugs. What are you talking about? But that was the creature that I had presented to them for like 10 years. This person doesn't like hugs. He doesn't like people. He doesn't like to connect. That was absolutely not true. It was just the character that I used to prevent people from getting close to me.
Yeah, well, you're good at that character. I would say my inner monster kind of took a different form. I had a belief that if I would just be perfect, then everybody would like me, and I could just prove to myself that I wasn't this awful, terrible, worthless person that I feel like I was led to believe at a young age. And I also overcompensated with some arrogance, right? So that vanity. And so I was just relentless about working hard and achieving, taking care of myself, saying yes, doing everything for myself. On my own. I wasn't taking care of myself, but like never asking for help, not showing that I'm vulnerable. But also like a crazy control freak, and probably not crazy in a figurative sense, because I think probably people just thought I was like kind of nuts, like just trying to control everything so that everything would go right. and
Yeah.
then I could feel good about myself, and then people would not criticize me. So it was really just to
Wow.
avoid the criticism, which was just echoing what I had it going on in my head.
Yeah.
Um, but but like you, like it's terrible because if I'm just seeing myself in this light as either being right and being able to do everything or just a terrible person, well, neither of those are true. So
Mhm.
I'm not being my true self. Even though I worked hard at intimacy, I was lying to myself about being my true self. I mean, I was
Right.
doing the best I knew how, but I didn't even know that it was all fake. And not fake, it wasn't authentic. It wasn't who I really am.
Mhm.
And over the long haul of just trying to be someone I wasn't, like my health was deteriorating. No surprise, my relationships were on the rocks. And uh, on the outside, you would have been like, wow, what a impressive Vita she's got. But
Mhm.
look, she's got it all together. But I was really
Right.
really a wreck.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a heavy burden to carry around um, unnecessarily. It's like no one was running around calling you names and telling you that you weren't okay and all these other things. I guess it was just the chatter,
Sort
and
of.
the voice would just get louder and louder whenever you would try to do something. And um, there was a saying that says, "Whatever you believe, it's true." And then I think the ego works to protect that. Whatever you believe about yourself, the ego is going to surround you and go, okay, so we're going to protect this. Even if it's a negative, well, I say negative image. It is just energy and it's not negative or positive. And the ego is designed to protect whatever that energy is. So it keeps putting you in predicaments that feed that story to you over and over and over again. So it almost makes it seem real.
Well, I guess I would modify it slightly and say they're self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yes, yes, that's true.
So so if I feel like I'm not gonna get what I need,
Yep.
which has been the primary narrative and my distorted view of the world, well, I'm not gonna tell people what I need, and I'm going to be kind of arrogant and, demanding because I'm a
Right,
perfectionist, and so are people gonna wanna give me what I need, or will they even be able to know?
right,
So I just created that situation for myself.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough, and it even affected me, as a parent because I, in my mind, I thought my role was to be the example for my boys, and I thought that my example was worthless, and so that's what they got. That's who showed up as their father.
Mm, yeah, worthless. That's a loaded word and a very heavy burden.
Yes.
And so on that, Lee puts a really great question in the chat. Thank you, Lee. He's basically saying, is this a first world problem for people of privilege? But I'll just read his question directly. In a world so full of trouble and chaos, sometimes the concept of self-care is self-indulgent. How can we strike a balance that has a positive outcome in the world? So I would love to respond to that, Lee, um,
That's a
because
great question. Great question.
it really is. And as I mentioned, when I wasn't caring for myself, I was harming myself and harming the people around me. And
Mhm.
I wasn't even doing my best work because what we talked about last time was it was the work that I thought I should be doing. And
Right.
so I was spending all my time and energy on some like pushing a rock up the hill.
Yes.
Whereas when I'm in touch with who I am and what I'm really here to do, and I honor my heart and I give myself, I'm my best cheerleader instead of my biggest critic. I have the energy and the bandwidth to create positive change in the world.
Correct. Yep.
Um, yeah, do you have anything to add to that, Jay?
Well, when I think about a world of balanced and being on one side or the other, And so there's this, the idea about living in heaven or hell. And, hell to me was living in that place where I didn't view myself as this valued being. That was hell. No matter what trinkets or things that I had possession of, I was living in hell. And to be honest, it wasn't until I just threw it all away, packed up my vehicle, and drove west and got out here. And for the first time, and this is no lie, I'm almost 60 years old. It was the first time I actually looked at myself in the mirror and go, hey, handsome. And, whether anyone else believes that or not wasn't the point. It was me, because I've never, ever said that to myself. And so it wasn't a point of vanity. It was just a point of saying, I love you, I value you, and this feeling that you have, this is what you can express to the world, not that other stuff.
Yes. Well said. And something I just wanted to reinforce, because you said something earlier where those critiquing voices were not still in your ear, except for on your own. It can also be true that that criticism continues, and
Yes.
for me, it continued well into my adulthood.
Right.
But the point is, and as you said about seeing yourself in the mirror, like, it doesn't matter what other people think.
Correct.
And I think one of the listeners last time said, like, somebody else's opinion of you is none of your business. Like, I love that. And so the problem, it becomes a problem when you actually believe them.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and you can't take the praise or the opposite of that. You can't take it too seriously. It has to come from inside, because if you're relying on someone to praise you, they can take that away from you just by not saying anything. And like I said, because I felt unworthy, I never asked for help, and I kept telling myself, well, no one cares, And it wasn't until I actually asked for help. Like, people don't know you need help until you ask. But I didn't see that. I used to tell this story about how I didn't feel supported when I played Little League football. Well, my mom paid for me to have that experience. She didn't come to the games because she was working. But the story in my head was, oh, she doesn't support me and blah. But she had to work, right? Single mom, 5 kids, but she provided me the ability to get out there and play. And as a kid, I just didn't see that. Like I said, that didn't fit the narrative about, who I was at the time.
Yeah, that's interesting, because we look to others to make us feel loved, but we don't see how they are showing their love, because there's this theory about love languages, right? So if somebody likes to show love with gifts, but you need words.
Yeah.
I'm always showing her I love her. And so it's just like talking different languages. And so if we're willing to perceive love the way they're offering it, then we will probably see much more love. But the point is, I think one of the points we're trying to make is that we have to love ourselves
first. Yes.
Yeah. And so that's not to say we don't negotiate and ask for what we need in a relationship in terms of love. Absolutely, we should. But it doesn't become this crazy making, oh my God, how can you not give this to me? Or how could you do that to me? Instead of a conversation, it becomes a fight or a, withdrawal and silent treatment, as my dad would say. Instead of a discussion. And so if we show ourselves that unconditional love and positive regard, then we don't feel like somebody's taking something away from us when they're not doing it exactly the way we want it.
Yes. And again, it's energy, and people respond to how you feel about yourself, because that's what you give out. Whether you say anything about it or not, it comes across in your mannerisms, the tone of your voice, and people pick up those invisible cues. And when you are so down on yourself, they feel that energy. And it's hard to love someone who doesn't love themselves. It's tough because no matter what you do, it's just not right. It's not enough because the story keeps changing. They keep writing larger novels in their head about why you don't love them. And no matter what you do, you never satisfy, that thing that's going on between their ears.
So this is WRWK 93.9 FM. This is Finding Our Fit. I'm Susanna Wu-Pong Calvert here with co-host Jah Khyle Howard, and we are discussing the path to true self, what's missing in self-care. Well, what's missing right now is your input and voice. So pop something in the chat if you'd, well, aside from Lee, pop something in the chat on Facebook or give us a call at 804-464-1089. Well, I'm here talking. I feel like I must say, in the interest of full disclosure and self-accountability, that I'm talking like I know something here, and that I've made progress, which I think I have. But what I don't want to imply is that I'm done with this work.
No, it's a never ending.
Yeah. Because even while I might be saying, well, we ought to be doing this, or I learned to do that, like I have to learn that over and over again.
Yeah.
When I find myself going, gosh, why did you do that? And then my feelings are hurt and I have to be like, oh,
it's almost like we're trained to look for things that are wrong. I don't recall, like even when, like, have anyone ever walked up to you and go, so, hey, what's right in your life? It's always what's wrong. And so the focus has always been on what's wrong, what's the flaw, what do I need to fix, right? So we're so inherently focused on looking at things that are wrong or things that needs to be fixed. And we totally miss, just the beauty of who we are and other people.
So what you're saying is take a more optimistic view of yourself,
Yes.
like not just glass half empty, which is pessimistic, but glass half full. And so Lee has another insightful comment.
Okay.
So glad you're not missing from this conversation, Lee. He says that it might be argued that focusing on yourself might only invite more problems like depression, but immersing yourself in service to others and community can help you feel good about yourself for good reasons. So, yeah, I absolutely, like, being of service to others, is scientifically proven to be better for the giver's well-being than the recipient. So in a way, it's selfish. But I think what I would say here, Lee, is I would really encourage people to do that inner work, not as looking for problems, as Jay was saying, but looking for balance and healing. Because I might say, oh, I'm not getting what I need. And I might do some inner work and go, gosh, I'm really irretrievably and irrevocably flawed, and I don't deserve any of this. I suppose I could come to that conclusion. But the other conclusion that I come to when I'm in a healthier place, like when I do the healthy, balanced approach, is, gosh, I'm only human. And none of us are perfect. And I do get what I need. So another thing we should do is challenge that belief. Yes. So like Jay's half empty analogy, well, where am I getting what I need? Right. So Jay was noticing how his mom actually did give him what he needs. Yes. So by challenging those beliefs, we can diminish them, make them more flexible, and find a more adaptive approach.
Right. And I understand it. And I guess the other side of the coin is, sometimes those things outside of yourself, if you're finding more joy in those, they become distractions from you actually doing that shadow work that you need to do. Like I said, other people, drug shopping, whatever, when they try to, I guess, medicate themselves by giving or any other thing that exists outside of them, from an authentic standpoint. Are you really giving of yourself, or are you using that as an opportunity to distract? And because in my depressed state, I fed a lot of people. I've gone to prison and talked to prisoners about stuff, and I would leave those environments and still had to deal with me, and so, in an effort to distract me from me, yeah, it was easy to go out and do other things. And so, but now the difference is not doing them because I feel the need to distract myself from me. I want to feel better. I do it because that's who I am.
Yes, well said. Thank you for that, Lee. And we had a question from Charles. I'll let Jay address this question. Charles asks, can you speak about navigating our issues with love addiction and love aversion?
Yes, I can do both. So, this if you're looking for this comfort from outside of yourself, and so I was definitely a serial monogamist because the newness of relationships made me feel great. I could focus on those. I could be the best boyfriend in the world in the beginning stages, but once things settled down and the new relationship smell was over, then it came down to me showing up as this authentic person, and I didn't. And so, generally what happened was I was addicted to the newness of relationships because it gave me an opportunity to show up as something else. And then as time went on, I found that I felt like my cover was being blown because they were getting to know who I am, I thought. And so then I would have to kind of blow the relationship up, so that I could kind of go back into my shell, so to speak. But when I realized the damage that I was doing to other people because of that, that's when I started to avoid those type of situations. And I just became a hermit, so work, gym, and the grocery store was my thing. It was the three places that I would go, had to eat, had to work out, and home. And so, I avoided connecting with other people because I felt like I said, I just felt my value wasn't worth the effort for other people engaging with me.
Yeah. And I feel like you could take anything, whether it's love or food or sex or work or exercise or Netflix,
Yeah.
addiction and aversion, like, if something is out of balance in your world,
Yes.
that there's something at cause inside
Yes.
that's at the root. And I just feel like it's important to say that neither Jay or I are clinical therapists. We're talking from the point of view of our own inner work and shadow work over many
Yes.
decades. So please take that with a grain of salt, because
Yes.
some of these things are actual clinical scenarios and we can't speak to that.
Right.
But to the degree it's about our beliefs or fears or wounds that are beneath our consciousness. They're kind of like that iceberg analogy, right? All of this, like 90% of the iceberg is underwater. And so same with our perceptions, like so much of it comes from beneath our immediate awareness. And
Right.
so if something's off in our world, that we're not having balance out here, there's something inside related to a shadow issue
Right.
that could stand some, would benefit from from some love.
Yes.
And if we avoid it, what I have found is that issue just gets worse and worse until it crashed my life down.
Yep.
And I affectionately call that rock bottom.
Yes. Yes.
And I say affectionate because um, because when I have done everything I could possibly think of, and I'm in this terrible place, I have to confront what got me there.
Yeah.
And the same habits and beliefs that have helped me to be successful are now pinning me to the floor. And so that's where insight and awareness can
Yes.
come in. Like we have to crack open our
Yeah.
belief system. Oh my gosh, it is real, literally such a relief.
Yeah.
And so now when I start to get in, like I start circling the drain, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna what got me here? I just make myself go there faster so I can get it over with. Like, what do I need? What do I need to learn or to grow into to get me out of this? Usually it's a self-limiting belief or
Yeah.
a pessimistic one or a fear of something. And so I and and when I actually love that part of me and I say thank you for the lesson, thank you for the protection that you've offered for years, and I don't need you anymore. I can heal this. I can find balance with this belief. I don't have to believe that I won't get what I need. I can develop skills to ask or be
Yeah.
resilient if somebody says no, because they will.
Yeah.
Then I find the gift of being able to advocate for myself and take care of myself and not expect other people to do that for me.
Yeah.
So
You,
I hope that answered your question, Charles.
I felt adequately prepared though for the irony of it. I felt adequately prepared for the pandemic shutdown. Like other people are trying to figure out, well, how do I stay shut in? I don't know what to do. I'm like, this is my comfort zone.
It's like, finally, people understand me.
Yeah. I mean, I was fine with it.
Yeah, so I wonder, Jay, if you have anything else to add about how did you make these discoveries about yourself? Like, I mean, I talked about rock bottom because I'm really stubborn
Right.
and I don't want to see what I don't want to see. And so it's not until I am absolutely unable to avoid it any longer. My
Well,
life has crashed, my relationship has crashed, or something's crashed,
yeah.
then I have to re-examine it and discover what's missing and that I can fill that void.
Yes.
How have you done it?
So, and we covered this a couple of times. So, my three-legged stool, work, gym, and grocery store. I had set these goals up professionally for me to accomplish the thing, and it kept me adequately distracted until I reached the goal. And once I reached the goal, it did not feel good at all. Like it was, the thing that hit me was, you've conquered the world, but you've lost your soul in the process. And I just remember having that feeling and understanding how I had disconnected from everyone. And something as simple as calling someone up to say, hey, let's go have a drink. I just got this promotion. And there was no one I felt I could call to enjoy that moment with me. And I realized I did it. And so, what should have been the greatest accomplishment in my career, it turned out to be not the greatest, the worst actually, but it was the best situation because I ran out of other things to distract me with. And so I had to turn inside. It was desperation time because I realized that um, obviously what I was feeling was not sustainable, and I could always come up with something to distract myself, but I ran out of things. And now I had to look at myself in the mirror. Now I had to look at my life in total and see this again, the horror story that I had written and what I needed to do, because it was up to me. I did this. It was nothing about my past, had nothing to do with I created this myself. And so I knew I had to fix it. And I wasn't really sold on seeking professional help. And I would say it was just not something that was in my environment, that we were somewhat felt comfortable in an environment. I tried, but again, it's hard to articulate something that you can't put to words. Like, there are no words to say, something's wrong. I just can't put my finger on it. There's nothing you can do. You can't feed someone information to begin to help you when you can't articulate what it is, because it's a feeling. And it's hard. It was hard for me to articulate a feeling. I mean, we have the short ones: love, hate, like, dislike, those things. But when something is eating at your soul, and you know that it is this deep gorge of something that's just not there, like this out of balance, and you realize, I need to do something. I don't know what it is, but I know I needed to search. And so that started the journey process of it. And now, for folks who are listening, this was in 2019. So it wasn't that long ago. I was able to lie to myself for a good 50 some odd years and convince well, like I said, I was functionally depressed. I can get out and do things, but my mind just wasn't right. Everything that I performed was a physical act, and it was easy for me to do that. But the mental stuff, the emotional stuff, were the things that I ignored. And so that's, when that leg on the stool came off, the stool tipped over.
Mm-hmm. So this is WRWK 93.9 FM. I'm Susanna Wupong Calvert, here with co-host Jah Khyle Howard. We're discussing Path to True Self, what's missing in self-care. We would love to continue to hear from you on Facebook live through the chat, or listeners may also call in to 804-464-1089. We love to hear from you, and thanks, Lee and Charles, for your insightful comments and questions. But just to weigh in on the therapy thing, because unlike Jay, I happen to be a huge fan of therapy. And if I have like an actual thing that I have identified that I feel like would benefit me in therapy, I'm just like all over it. I love to go to therapy. And I, in contrast to Jay, I feel like I have had very good luck with them helping me to identify what's wrong.
Yeah.
Some of the best advice I got in therapy, and but that being said, like Jay, I guess we told this story in the last show about work, that I had a similar realized the emptiness of an achievement I'd been striving for decades. So you and same like Jay, the mental and emotional stuff. Like, I was working on my intellectual stuff, but that mental health, the emotional health, the healthy practices, knowing yourself well enough to cultivate a healthy relationship with others, having the self-awareness of the self-talk, like all of that was so self-generated. And it wasn't because I was a slacker or because I didn't want to do the right thing. I just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody ever talked to me about this.
Right.
Like, what I saw in my family is, if you're upset, you yell and you take it out on somebody, or you go hide, in my case, when I was a kid. So like, there was just no role models for this.
Correct.
And we don't learn about it in school, and we don't really learn about it in the workplace unless we somehow get rewarded with being sent to emotional intelligence school. So part of the reason for me starting the Foundation for Family and Community Healing is because I had to learn all of this the hard way. And fortunately, my best friend is a clinical psychologist. So she wasn't my therapist, but she would give me tidbits of research and, studies and stuff like that. And what I just feel like is that this ought to be part of our life skills development from an early age. And
Absolutely.
not just for kids, although absolutely, if we can get kids to develop healthy emotional, psychological, and social habits, that'll serve them for decades. But all of us, I feel, could benefit from having a better relationship with ourselves, a healthier and more balanced one, um, as well as and with others, and that um, can can improve our quality of life and our mental health and physical health and our ability to serve, do good in the world, as Lee asked, and we shouldn't wait for retirement, and we should hopefully we don't wait to say, oh well, I'm too old.
Right.
Because if Jay and I can learn at our ages, so can you.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. Indeed. You know, it's I find I enjoy the lessons now. I look forward to the discovery now because that other person, man, he was a drag. you know he'd be the guy you invite to the party and sit in the corner. you know Now I'm on the table with the lampshade because I just feel really good and relaxed and at peace. And the things that they said you will experience when you die, your heaven, so to speak. And I'm living it right now. And it is such a vast difference from who I was to who I am today. And like I said, the discovery. And I think part of the reason why I didn't seek professional help, because I had to admit to another person that I wasn't okay. And that was hard for me to do that, even for a total stranger, because I felt like she would be judging me, looking at me, telling me, well, you need to do this. And I wasn't, I don't know if I could take that. So even I used the company sponsored EAP to go see some folks. And I just never opened up enough to be helped because I could not admit that I wasn't okay. Because I felt like, I'm a man. I'm supposed to be fine. Like there's nothing that should bother me because we're men. Like boys don't cry and all these other things. And how dare I feel sad? And I can't admit that because that was the training as a kid, that we're supposed to be tough and all these things. You're not supposed to have any emotion. And I tried to live that way, and it was hard. So the best I could do was come up with this unfeeling character who enjoyed hugs, but convinced everybody else that I didn't. It was rough.
As hard as it is to be a BIPOC female in this world, I would take that any day over being a man. Even at 70% wage. Because just this thing of not being allowed to feel your feelings or confide in your friends. And well, let's be clear, like I would only be willing to be so vulnerable with my friends too, but at least I was allowed to feel what I felt.
Yeah.
And then when I was able to feel my feelings and share them, like it's all good for the most part, unless you're doing that at work, because that's still not okay at work.
Right.
No matter your gender. But I just truly, my heart breaks for the men or women or children or whoever or anything in between, anybody in between that is being told they shouldn't have any feelings, or they're not allowed, or your feelings are wrong.
Yes.
Your feelings may not be very helpful, except to point out that there is something within you that you have the power to change.
Correct.
Maybe could use some attention, and maybe you want to address a belief that is causing you to feel this way, or a habit, or a fear.
Right. Yeah. And my thing, how else then, whatever your beliefs are spiritually, how else could your spirit communicate with you outside of feelings? And if you're constantly stuffing that stuff down, you're not going to get the inner guidance that you need to kind of put you on a path to healing and regeneration.
Yes, and for those who don't necessarily turn to spirit, I call that inner wisdom.
Yeah.
And as messed up, smart and messed up as I've been most of my life, when I have calmed my mind and searched for answers from my heart, that always never failed to steer me in the right direction.
That is correct. Yes.
So what we have been discussing here is what's missing in our self-care. And what Jay and I have discovered is that what was missing was us being our own hero and uh, um, understanding our courage and excellence and our ability to get what we needed for ourselves and take care of ourselves and not look to others, either other people or to accomplishments in the world to make us feel better about ourselves. And this path to self-discovery happened through either us reaching the pinnacle of our career success and it feeling empty, or for me, it was devastating, um, or hitting rock bottom when our shadow issues, these unrecognized fears, just get heavier and heavier and worse until we are forced to confront them.
Mm-hmm.
And that by doing that inner work, by noticing those fears, thoughts, and habits, and challenging the dysfunctional part of that, and being willing to adopt a different belief and practice around it. So instead of being our own monster or somebody else's monster, we become our own hero, and we can role model that for other people and offer support for their journeys. And by loving ourselves, providing ourselves what we need, and communicating to others and asking them what we want, what we would like from them, that we can recover that lost part of ourself that's just fighting to be seen and heard, pretty much our inner child, so to speak. And we can enjoy a much more peaceful, easier, I mean, more enjoyable. I find it much easier life where we're not constantly fighting our inner demons.
That's right. Yes.
So, so this is our hope for everybody, including especially the listeners here. Ron put something in the chat. He says, like gravity, life with other broken people is stressful, but possible. And though we get stronger, we rarely get off the ground.
Yep.
That takes a healthy group to do that. So the best thing we could do
That's awesome.
is to take care of ourselves in a way that we feel liberated and free and able to live the heaven on earth that's available to us if we rise to be our own hero and even role model that and help others. And then we can bring others along. So the Foundation for Family and Community Healing offers many of these skills for mental, emotional, and relationship health and well-being. And you can access them on a gift economy at healingedu.org. And Jay, do you want to take the last minute to share how people can find you and your work?
Sure. I have, if you search my name, Jah Khyle Howard, on Amazon, I have some written information there. The one thing that I wrote in the midst of my misery was, "You've lost your damn mind." And that is my foundational information on sort of a self-examination on your thoughts and how your thoughts impact your life. And so there's some good information out there.
Okay, and just to be clear, for those who are on the radio, it's spelled JAH KHYLE Howard. So
Yes.
Jay's a prolific writer and author. And so it's been great having this conversation with you, Jay. I love hearing your perspective and your stories most of the time anyway. And it was wonderful having those of you on Facebook join us in this rich conversation. And we will take, Finding Our Fit will be airing next week with Ali Fisher, but Jay and I will skip the next round because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So we wish you all well, and hope you are happily finding your fit wherever you are. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Ron.
Good night.
Indeed, indeed. You will never done finding our fit. I want to throw in a kudo and a question for Richmond area residents. In view of the fact that we just had an election and that a lot of people turned out to vote on the casino issue, not necessarily because I agree with either side, but because they cared enough to do that, I would like to ask them, go to theworkfm.org and tell us what you were hoping to accomplish with your vote. Not whether or not you liked casinos, but what you were trying to change in your world, because that's why we want to come in and be of service to you as we all find our fit. So we're back to democracy now. Adios. All right. Thanks for watching.